Hi everyone, Becca here. Just taking a few minutes to share my completed Journal of Stitchery that we've been working on for the past 6 months. And I'm just going to do a little flip through. And my cover, of course, is all done. Here's the spine and the back cover. This is a Beatrix Potter fabric that I loved. And in the very beginning of the book, I had left a pocket to put a little journal in to write something about the book and the Journal of Stitchery. And I'm not a journal maker at all by any stretch of the imagination, so I just did the best that I could do. And I made this little journal. I had some hemp paper, and I just took the pieces and cut them to the size that I wanted using my decollage trimmer, and just wrote for each month a little something for each month. I wrote about the sampler pages in January, February, and I just went through and wrote something in there so that whoever gets this book in the future, whether it's my grandchildren or great-grandchildren, they will know exactly what I was thinking when I did these. And I put this little strip here. I had started to write on the first page and made a mistake, and so I didn't want to rip that out. I didn't know if that would compromise the little journal. So I just folded it in half and glued it down and added this piece of fabric, which actually kind of goes with the journal. And on the front, I just put a little strip of fabric here, and that has writing on it, so kind of signifying a journal to me. And this is a little piece of wool that I had used also in the journal. I think it was the cottage page. And I had this little squirrel that I loved and wanted to get him in here and never did, and a flower, so he definitely went on the journal cover. And this is just cardstock that I had, or, decorative paper that I use for cards. So that just sits right in here in the front of the book. And this is my title page with the bunny and vintage lace. And the lace that I used that was vintage was part of a collar that was my mom's when she was first married, so that's very special. And the next pages are our sampler pages, so those are all in as well, all stitched in. And then our bunny, oh no, I'm sorry, this was bunny with vintage lace. This was January's block, bunny with vintage lace, and February was reclaimed fabric and fancy flowers. And then the next one was a beautiful butterfly and neutral background, and that's just a beautiful dresser scarf that I cut. I had a hard time cutting that. And the next April is an old quilt and a country cottage. And this is not an old quilt, but I put batting behind it and quilted it so that I complied sort of to the prompt there. And there's a theme here of little mice, little animals, which I love, and nature, and Beatrix Potter fabrics, Brambly Hedge fabrics. So I love those. That's kind of a little theme that seems to run throughout. And this was May, and this was Bird and Favorite Color. And I love that blush pink that is on the inside of shells, so that's the favorite colored background. And this little, it's not a chipping sparrow. Oh, I forgot what it was. Some kind of a little sparrow. And again, signifying a mother, Mother's Day in May. And this little bird is a mother. And June was hand-dyed or hand-painted fabric, and a heart. This is hand-dyed silk du peony left over from a quilt made for our daughter and son-in-law when they got married, and a reverse applique heart, which I loved. This is a poem that I had shared in my last video, something that my brother and I shared because our mother had, it was special to her. She memorized it in first grade, and we both, he and I, loved it. Well, the three of us did. And so I included this because we had lost my brother, and this is his page. This was the cabin in the woods that I did for him in memory of him. And of course that poem is there also because of the connection that he and I shared with that. And this very last page is a little something that he wrote in one of his many nature journals that I loved. And it's called The Bittersweet Vine, and it actually has bittersweet right in the fabric that I chose to do as the frame. So that is my journal, and this fabric here, I loved. This is what I had glued to cover where I added the floating spine. And because I'm all new to this, this was really, for me, really a learning experience. And I have to say, truthfully, I hated stitching in the signatures. It was, oh my goodness, it was like acrobatics. I just did not care for it. There must be an easier way. But one of my subscribers actually had asked if I would share how I did the floating spine. And I make this disclaimer right now that I am no expert and that this is not a tutorial. This is just the way that I did it. And it seemed to work okay. I mean, mechanically, everything worked okay. I just found it difficult. But the first thing I did was take, for that subscriber, I'll just explain quickly, I took a piece of cardboard the width of the spine of this book. So I can't remember if this was 2 or 2.5. And cut the cardboard to match the size that would fit into the spine of the book. And then I just found the center point of this spine, and then I measured over, in this instance, about 5/8 of an inch over, and I drew lines, and then I decided how many holes that I wanted to do. And on mine, I think I did 9 or 11 holes. I did quite a bit, so it's definitely in there to stay. And once I had my measurements for this, and this is a little crochet hook that was my grandmother's, and my grandfather had made this for her. He ground the tip of the hook off because she used to like to use it for ripping out stitches. She was really an amazing seamstress. Sewed everything on a treadle sewing machine, a white treadle sewing machine. So this was her little stitch ripper, and I treasure it. But I put this cardboard on my wool mat, and I just lined this up with the holes and just punched through very easily, went through all the holes. And once I got those marked, I took the fabric that I had chosen for my spine. This is something that just a piece that I chose randomly, and cut it to the length, a little bit longer than the length and the width of the cardboard piece, because what you want is for part of it to extend onto your book covers front and back, and those will be glued down, and then you can put your paper, I'm sorry, not your paper, but your fabric over those little extensions. So that'll glue over that, and then it secures the edges of your floating spine. So I just took my little, really template, I guess, in a sense, and put it on the right side of the fabric. And I took a Frixion pen, and I also drew these lines with Frixion pen. That way when I pressed, everything would disappear. And I just put marks where these holes are on the right side of the fabric. And once I had the marks where I had to stitch, I put this cardboard on the wrong side of the fabric, and then I just took some Aleene's tacky glue. I don't know if that's the right glue to use. I know it is for fabric. I've used it before for fabric, so it should be okay. And I added a little water because it was very thick, and I just took one of my paintbrushes and I just painted some glue on the back of the cardboard and placed it on the fabric. And then I put a little glue on this side of the cardboard, and I glued these edges up so that when this goes in, this floating spine will go in your book like this. When you open the book, the spine goes in like that against the other spine of the book. And with these edges folded down, it's all finished for you. And then your raw edges, if you need to trim them on each end for the book, for this little overlapping fabric, you can trim that, but it gives your spine a finished look. And then where those holes were, I just laid a signature on top of lined it up with the holes, and then I stitched through the center of the signature. And another thing that I did to make that a bit easier was that here on my signature, I also, while they were out of the book, I folded them in half, and I made a mark on that inside edge of where the holes were that corresponded with the holes in my floating spine. So I then had these marks here, and all I did was take this signature, take the first one, and line it up. I started with the first one. I don't know if you're supposed to start with the center, but I started with the first signature, and I stitched through the holes on the page, went down through the spine, and then came up. I actually started from the back, so I left a tail in the back of this cardboard so that I could tie everything off in the back and nothing would be seen from the front. So I came up from the back, through one of these holes, through the signature, down through the next hole into this, from the back came up, did that all the way up, and then down, then up, and came back, and I tied that one off. And I didn't start with the first hole. I started with the second one, so a knot where I tied the thread that had come around, the tail that was left when I began, and then the tail when I finished. I wouldn't be tying a knot up so close to the top of the spine. I started in the second hole here, going up through. And then I added the second signature, again following these holes that were marked on here from this template, and the third, and tied them all off in the back, made knots, tied those off. So all my pages were stitched into this floating spine. I hope I'm using the right term. I think it's a floating spine. And these edges are glued down. So then I just placed everything, the pages, in here, and I glued that spine down, and I let that dry. And then I came back with some more glue, and I glued these two flaps, one and 2. Glued these 2 flaps, so those are underneath this fabric right here. You can probably just see the edge of the fabric there. So those little tabs from the floating spine, I can't talk, floating spine go under this fabric here. I glued those down, and I set books, like a book here and a book here. And oh, I should mention, while this spine and these pages were drying, attached to the back of the book, I piled books up to keep this upright until that was secure. Once that was secure, I glued these tabs down from the spine, these tabs, and set a book on those and let those dry. And then very lastly, I folded this fabric over from when I had covered the book originally, folded both of those over, glued those down, set books on those, and that was it. That finished everything. So I hope that that little explanation of the way that I did it is clear. Again, I'm not an expert at this by any stretch of the imagination. This is all, that is my first time doing this. And I was able to do it, I just didn't like it. It's not my favorite part of this whole thing. But anyway, I just thought I would do that flip through of my book for the first 6 months of 2022. What a nice accomplishment we have, and a nice keepsake. I already have one of our twin girls who wants this, although she hasn't seen Christmas yet. And we, in our family, we really celebrate Christmas, so I think my next 6 months will be a combination of Christmas and winter, maybe all Christmas, but may throw in a little bit of winter too. So I will come back with that video when I get that. I know I'm late, but I've been moving my sewing studio downstairs just because I would like it on the first floor where it's just, I'm there more often. So that has been an undertaking, and I'm nowhere near finished. So I'm trying to fit in July's prompts. I'm so excited. I do have some fabrics set aside, not very much, but I have some. So I will come back with that video. But anyway, I think I've rambled long enough here. Thank you very much for looking, and thank you all also for sharing your journals of stitchery flip through. I've loved seeing them. Thank you. Bye for now.